You think you know what 30 days is. A month of school, a month of work, a month of scrolling on your phone. But 30 days in a trench is not time. It's weight. It sits on your chest, it seeps into your bones, and it never really leaves. For the next 10 minutes, you're not where you are now. You are a soldier, standing in a narrow ditch of mud and rotting wood, 7 feet below the surface of a torn-up field. And you are going to live here for 30 days. The first thing you notice is the smell. It hits you before the cold, before the fear, before the noise. It's a mix of wet earth, sweat, latrines that overflow, cigarette smoke, and something else you don't name at first. The sour, sweet stench of bodies that have been lying out too long. You arrive at dusk, stumbling along duckboards that float on mud more than they rest on it. The trench walls lean in on you, held back by sandbags, wooden planks, and hope. You're tired from the march, but the routine doesn't care. Stand to, they say. You stand on the firing step, rifle in your hands, eyes straining into a no-man's land you can barely see. This is how almost every day begins and ends. That first night, you don't really sleep. You half doze in your greatcoat, back against the sticky trench wall, boots in cold water. You hear everything. Distant artillery, a machine gun stuttering somewhere down the line, a man coughing himself raw 2 bays away. Rats scuttle over the duckboards, big as cats, fat from eating what no one talks about. One stops on your boot, looks at you like you're the intruder, and then vanishes into the dark. By the end of the first week, you understand something. The trench is not just where you fight, it is where you live. And life here is mostly waiting. Your days blur into a pattern. Before dawn, stand to, staring into the gray, convinced every shadow is an attack. Morning, clean your rifle, scrape mud off the walls, repair sandbags, drain water if you can. Afternoon, if you're lucky, a few hours of broken sleep or letters written with numb fingers. After dark, work parties, carrying supplies, repairing wire, sometimes crawling into no man's land to fix things that will probably be destroyed again tomorrow. You learn to eat fast and without looking too closely. Sometimes it's cold tea and hard biscuits. Sometimes it's bacon that tastes more like the tin than the meat. Bread goes moldy fast out here. Everything tastes faintly of mud and smoke. At first, you flinch at every shell you hear. By day 7, you've started to tell the difference. The whine that ends in a distant thud. The sudden crack that means it landed close enough to feel in your teeth. The heavy, slow growl of a barrage that makes the ground shiver under your boots. Around the second week, your body begins to understand that this isn't just a bad night or two. This is the new normal, and it doesn't like it. Your feet are always wet. The trench floor is a mixture of water, clay, and things you don't want to name. Your socks never really dry. Your boots never come off for long. One morning you wake up and your feet feel wrong. Swollen, heavy, numb. You press your fingers into the pale, waxy skin and feel nothing. It's like touching someone else's body. You've heard the stories. Trench foot. Feet swelling to twice their size, turning blue, then black. Toes rotting, skin peeling. The smell of decay that doesn't come from the dead out there, but from the living in here. You take your boots off when you can. Rub your feet. Change socks if you have any dry ones left. You don't do this because you're disciplined. You do it because you're afraid. Then there are the lice. Tiny, invisible at first. Your uniform starts to itch. Then it stops being itchy and becomes maddening. Men sit there, shirts off despite the cold, hunched under what little light there is, cracking lice between their thumbnails and watching the seams of their clothes crawl. You join them. You scratch until your skin is red and raw, but you never really win. The lice always come back. Sleep, when it comes, is thin and nervous. You grab an hour between duties, head against a sandbag, boots still on, rifle within reach. You dream of dry sheets, warm rooms, clean skin. You wake up to the same wall of mud, the same damp coat, the same numb ache in your hands and feet. By the middle of the month, fear stops being a sharp spike that hits you when shells fall or flares go up. It becomes something else, a constant noise in the back of your mind, always there, never shutting off. You get used to the corpses. That sentence should not be possible, but it becomes true. Out in no man's land, bodies lie where they fell weeks ago, some half buried in mud, some staring back at the sky that never looked down for them. When it rains hard, pieces of them slide closer to the trench. Nobody looks too long. Nobody says their names. One night, you're sent on a wiring party. You climb out of the trench into air that suddenly feels too open, too big. You crawl on your belly through churned up ground, past broken wood, ripped uniforms, something that your hand touches and then recoils from. Every flare that goes up freezes you in place. For a second, the whole battlefield is lit in harsh white. The twisted wire, the craters, the distant shape of the enemy trench. Your own breath suspended in front of your face. When darkness slams back down, your heart starts again. Back in the trench, you hear a man scream, not from a bullet, not from shrapnel. He's huddled in the corner, hands over his ears, eyes wide, teeth chattering uncontrollably. Each shell that lands, even far away, makes him flinch and cry out. It takes 3 men to hold him down when the stretcher comes. You've just met your first shell shock case up close. You realize that the trench isn't just killing bodies. It's breaking minds. Around day 19, you stop counting days. Calendars don't matter here. Only routines do. You measure time by how many cigarettes you have left, how long until the next stand to, how many names you still recognize in your section. The trench itself changes with the weather. On dry, cold days, the mud hardens into a cracked skin under your boots. On wet days, and there are many, the walls ooze and slump. The floor becomes a sucking swamp that tries to steal your boots with every step. Maintenance is endless. You fill sandbags, reinforce walls, bail water with anything that can hold it. It feels pointless, because the next bombardment will undo hours of work in seconds. You do it anyway, because the trench is both prison and shelter. If it collapses, so do you. Letters from home arrive sometimes, stiff with dried mud and fingerprints. You read them slowly, savoring every ordinary detail. The weather, a neighbor's complaint, what someone cooked for dinner. When you finish, you fold the paper carefully and put it inside your tunic, close to your skin, like armor. You've seen men die in every way the trench can offer. A stray bullet while they're just stretching. A shell that lands without warning and turns 3 people into pieces. A quiet cough that never gets better until they're carried out on a stretcher and you don't see them again. You start to understand why some veterans will later say that their memories of the trenches are not battles, but rats, lice, mud, and the waiting. In your last week, something strange happens. You've been ground down, worn out, scared past what you thought your limits were. And yet, a tiny part of you has grown used to this. You move through the trench almost automatically now. You know exactly which duckboard is loose, which corner floods first, where the wall bulges in just enough to lean your back without taking a shower of mud. You can tell by the note of artillery in the distance whether you should duck or whether you can keep talking for a moment longer. You joke with the men around you, but the humor is sharp, dark, and quick. You laugh at things that would horrify someone who hasn't been here. A rat stealing food right out of a sleeping man's hand. Someone's boot getting stuck so deep in the mud they come out of it barefoot. The way everyone dives for cover when a shell lands a little too close and then gets up pretending they weren't afraid. On one of these last nights, you stand on the firing step again, watching the horizon. Snow, or maybe just cold rain, drifts down, mixing with the ever-present mud. You think about the you from 30 days ago, clean, nervous, shocked by the smell. That version of you feels impossibly distant, like someone you knew as a child. The order finally comes. You're being relieved. Another unit will take your place. You're going out of the line for rest. Rest that still means work, but at least not here, not in this same ditch of mud and memory. You feel two things at once. A desperate relief that you're getting out alive, at least for now. A strange, guilty heaviness, knowing that someone else will step into the exact spot where you've been standing, inherit your mud, your rats, your sky. When you finally climb the communication trench and step back onto what people insist on calling solid ground, the air feels too open, too clean. The sky is too big. The silence between distant guns is too quiet. You look down at your boots, caked with 30 days of someone else's war. You smell the trench on yourself, in your clothes, in your skin. It will take more than a bath to remove it. For many, it will take a lifetime. That is what 30 days in a trench feels like. Not a story of constant heroics or nonstop action, but of mud, cold, fear, boredom, pain, and the simple, stubborn act of surviving one more day.